Good morning. This is Pastor Micah from Life's Journey, United Church of Christ. Welcome. As I began a few weeks ago, I'm recording my sermon before the service in case there are any outages of Zoom or anyone can't access the service from Zoom. I do want to point out a few things about the background here. Behind me, you'll see an artist's rendition of the Trinity. This is based on a Greek Orthodox icon, but they've changed it where you can see folks of all different backgrounds represented in the Trinity. And on the table of blessing and fellowship that the Trinity offers, there is a rainbow coloration. And right now there's a rainbow flag here donated by one of our church members to celebrate LGBT pride. We would have some of those colors up in the sanctuary if we were gathered. And so I put this on my entryway table as a way of setting it aside as an altar. Before I begin the message, I've started a tradition of beginning each virtual service through saying words of blessing from the Jewish tradition and donning a face mask. In Judaism, any duty to protect life is considered a mitzvah, a sacred duty. It might not be written down word for word in the Bible, but the duty to protect life, Judaism says, is at the heart of any true faith. And so when they engage in a practice that is a mitzvah, they say a blessing on it. So as I begin this, donning the face mask to get you used to seeing them in the community, wearing them yourself, and seeing them when we gather again for face-to-face worship, whenever the Lord wills it to be time. I want to invite you to join in this prayer of blessing of the mitzvah. You, our bountiful infinite God, majesty of space and time, have sanctified us with divine commandments and commanded us to preserve and protect life as we don face masks and engage in other protective tasks like waiting 6 feet, washing hands, and social distancing. Bless our effort to protect and preserve life. Amen. We have two readings for this week, one from the Gospel of Matthew and the second from 2 Corinthians. Matthew 18, beginning in verse 21. Then Peter said to Jesus, Lord, how many times should I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Should I forgive as many as 7 times? Not just 7 times, but rather as many as 77 times. And dropping down to 2 Corinthians 2. So I decided that for my own sake, I wouldn't visit you again while I was upset. If I make you sad, who will be there to make me glad when you are sad because of me? That's why I wrote this very thing to you, so that when I came, I wouldn't be made sad by the ones who ought to make me happy. I have confidence in you that my happiness means your happiness. I wrote to you in tears with a very troubled and anxious heart. I didn't write to make you sad, but so you would know the overwhelming love that I have for you. But if someone has made anyone sad, that person hasn't hurt me, but all of you to some degree, not to exaggerate. The punishment handed out by the majority is enough for that person. This is why you should try your best to forgive and to comfort this person now instead, so that this person isn't overwhelmed by too much sorrow. So I encourage you to show your love for this person. This is another reason why I wrote you. I wanted to test you and see if you are obedient in everything. If you forgive anyone for anything, I do too. And whatever I've forgiven, if I've forgiven anything, I do it for you in the presence of Christ. These are the words of God for all God's people. May our still speaking God open the eyes of our hearts and ears of our minds, so we might see and hear what God is saying to us in these words of Holy Scripture. Last week, I introduced our series on 2 Corinthians by sharing words to a rap song, Dear God, by the Roots, which described in detail all the suffering of this world and asked where God was in it and how we can respond faithfully to as God's biggest fans who are trying hard to see God even in times of pain. Last week we saw God's promise to be present with us in our sufferings, to embrace us in them, never leaving our side, and even somehow suffering alongside us. And we saw God's promise to bring good out of suffering, gifts of compassion and love. This week we explore a particular side of suffering, which I think hits all of us pretty hard. As I reflected on this kind of suffering, I couldn't help but think of another song, this time not rap, but country music. So whoever I offended by rap music last week, you probably won't be offended by country this week, but those of you who love rap, you might not like the country music. It's okay. I hear God's voice in all kinds of places, and I bet you do too. Terry Clark, some years ago, expressed his suffering well in her song, I Just Want to Be Mad. Last night, she sings, we went to bed not talking, because you'd already said too much. I faced the wall, you faced the window, bound and determined not to touch. We've been married 7 years now. Some days it feels like 21. I'm still mad at you this morning. Coffee's ready if you want some. I've been up since 5 thinking about me and you, and I'm going to tell you the conclusion I've come to. I'll never leave. I'll never stay. My love for you will never change, but I ain't ready to make up. We'll get around to that. I think I'm right. I think you're wrong. I'll probably give up before long. Please don't make me smile. I just want to be mad for a while. These words express the pain and heartache I think we feel in everyday relationships of love and care. If you are like me, you might have had moments like this in the midst of the quarantine with whoever your partner or loved one was in the midst of it. And you probably had it at other points in your life. Even when we know the relationship we are in is not coming apart, we can still experience strain, misunderstanding with ourselves and those with whom we relate. We can hurt each other and be hurt. Sometimes, no matter how hard you try, the strain doesn't end as it does here with, I'll never leave, I'll never stray, I just want to be mad for a while. Sometimes, instead, the story ends in broken relationships, friendships that end. Marriages or other intimate partnerships become separate. Families split apart or break into arguments. Churches divide, you name it. Today's scripture reading speaks of the pain and invites us all to consider both how God is present in the midst of broken relationships and how we can respond faithfully in the midst of it. The Apostle Paul writes to the deeply divided church, there are those who caused great pain to others in the church in a variety of ways. In a community divided by rich and poor, at church, people have divided along those same lines with mistrust and mistreatment, heaped out on those deemed different, even in their time of communion. In the early church, communion was more of a shared meal than the short symbolic act with crackers. Okay, I'm stopping. You're calling me. Hold on. I've ended